All right, hello juniors, this is Mr. Torres. I am just making this video to help you with your paraphrasing of Lincoln's second inaugural address, okay? So in class, we talked about a little bit of the background behind Lincoln's second inaugural address. You know, the texts that we're looking at for this unit are Civil War texts. So things that were written or given around the time of the Civil War. And so we were talking about Abraham Lincoln, who gave this speech the second time that he won the presidency of the United States. Okay. And so this background information here is really helpful as we read this. It'll just give us a little bit of context behind the reason why Lincoln gave this speech. So it says, on March 4th, 1865, only 41 days before his assassination, President Abraham Lincoln took the oath of office for the second time. Lincoln's second inaugural address previewed his plans for healing a once divided nation. The speech is engraved on the north interior wall of the Lincoln Memorial. So this speech, as you noticed when I read it for you in class, is a difficult one to get your mind around. You know, it was given in 1865. It has a lot of very, very formal language. And because of that very, very formal language, it is difficult on the first read or even the second read to figure out what Lincoln was trying to say. And that is a problem because if we're going to analyze this speech, we have to understand what he's trying to say. And so the way that we understand what he's trying to say is we paraphrase, okay? Paraphrasing is putting the speech into your own words. And I kind of think of paraphrasing as translating. And I told you all in class that, you know, I'm not a very good Spanish speaker. If somebody speaks to me in Spanish, I can understand some of what they're saying, but most of it goes over my head. And so in order to receive their message and understand their message, I have to then translate into something that I can understand. So paraphrasing is going to help us translate this into something we can understand. Okay? And so in class, I went through the first paragraph with you all. We split this into paragraphs based on where you sit in class. So table 1 had the first one, table 2 had the second one, table 3 had this pink area of paragraph 3, table 4 had this green area of paragraph 3, table 5, I must have hated table 5 because they have this blue area of paragraph 3, and then table 6 has the fourth paragraph of the speech. So we split this into different sections for you to paraphrase with the people at your table. If you didn't finish in class, then the instructions were to go home and finish paraphrasing, okay? So I really want you all to try to finish paraphrasing this speech. I know for a fact that it will not be perfect. Even when I paraphrase this speech, which is a difficult speech, by the way, even when I paraphrase this speech, I don't get everything 100% correct. But the goal is to get it mostly correct. And if you can get it mostly correct, then you can understand and fill in the gaps of the things that you don't have correct. You can make those adjustments because, you know, that's just how the human brain works. Okay, so paraphrasing is something that I even have my AP students do. AP students tend to read a lot of old texts like this, a lot of old poetry, and paraphrasing is a really, really useful skill for them because once they understand what something is saying, then they can analyze it. Then they can make decisions about it, okay? So what we're going to do is we're just going to go through the first paragraph again. If you were in class with me, you know, this is just a review of what we did in class. If you were not in class and this will help you, either way, you can watch this video and rewind over and over again to kind of get a feel for it and kind of understand my process, okay? So when I paraphrase, I like to break things up into smaller sections, okay? I don't want to paraphrase this entire first paragraph. So I'm actually going to break it up into sections based on sentences. Okay, so that's the first thing that I'm going to do. And then we can go from there if we have to. So actually, I'm just going to underline the first sentence here. So it says, fellow countrymen, okay? So fellow countrymen, we know that Lincoln is the president of the United States, and we know that a countryman is somebody who is from your own country, right? So basically, he's saying fellow people from the United States. Fellow means people who are just like me. And so when you think of people who are just like him, in that they are from the United States, he's talking about Americans, okay? So he's speaking to Americans here, okay? And he says, at this second appearing to take the oath of the presidential office, there is less occasion for an extended address than there was at the first. Okay, so here he's saying this is the second time giving this speech. And now there is less occasion for an extended address than there was at the first. So he says there's less occasion. So this word occasion here might throw some of us off, okay? So if a word throws you off and if you're confused by a word, you have to look it up. That has to be part of your process. So I'm going to go here to the internet and I'm going to see that occasion has a few different definitions, okay? So it can be a particular time or instance of an event. On one occasion, I stayed up until 2 in the morning. It kind of sounds like how Lincoln is using it. An instance, there is less instance for a long speech. There is less time for a long speech. That's not what he's saying, though, because, I mean, he's the president. He has much time. He has as much time as he wants. But if we look at the second definition, it says formal, the formal use of the word occasion. Now, the way that President Lincoln is speaking is very, very formal. So this might be a good hint as to where we should look, okay? So it says reason or cause. It is the first time that I've had an occasion to complain. So similar words for that are reason, cause, call, grounds, justification, need, necessity. Okay, so let's see. There is less reason for an extended address than there was at the first. That actually sounds pretty good. So Americans, this is the second time giving the speech, and now there is less reason for a long speech than there was at the first. So then my first one. So basically he's saying the first time I gave this speech, it was long, and there was a reason that it was long. But now there's no need for this speech to be that long. So that's what he's saying in this first paragraph, or this first sentence of this first paragraph. So now let me look at the second sentence of the paragraph. I'm going to underline that one. So he says, then a statement somewhat in detail of a course to be pursued seemed fitting and proper. So then, meaning back then. So the first time I gave this speech, a statement somewhat in detail. So detail meaning he's saying a lot of things. So a long statement or speech of a course to be pursued. So a course to be pursued. Here, the course to be pursued means of what we should do, of where we should go. Pursued means like where you should go, right? So a long statement of what we, and when he says we, he means the country. should do seemed fitting and proper. Seemed right. Seemed like the right thing to do. Okay, so we have the second sentence, and let's see if it just makes sense right now with the first one that we put. So Americans, this is the second time giving this speech, and now there is less reason for a long speech than my first one. The first time I gave this speech, a long statement of what the country should do seemed right. Okay, so what I am paraphrasing it into, what I am writing down, what I am translating into, sounds correct. It makes sense, okay? So I know that we're on the right track, okay? Now let's look at this third sentence. So he says, now, at the expiration of 4 years, during which public declarations have been constantly called forth on every point, this is a long sentence, and phase of the great contest, which still absorbs the attention and engrosses the energies of the nation, little that is new could be presented. Okay, so we have a little bit of a longer sentence here. Now, with these longer sentences, which Lincoln will have sometimes because he was a very well-spoken person, these longer sentences, we have to break them down into smaller bits, okay? So let's just go maybe phrase by phrase or a few words at a time, okay? So he was talking about back then, but now, we can keep now. We know what now means, comma. At the expiration, that just means, well, what does that mean, expiration? Let's see. Where's my keyboard? Show keyboard. Okay, so let me go expiration definition. All right. So the ending of a fixed period of which a contract is valid, or it can mean exhaling your breath. I don't think it's any of that. So expiration, I'm pretty sure that means this, the end of a period of time. Yeah, so at the end of 4 years, okay, so he's talking about his presidency here, his first presidency, because we know the presidency lasts for 4 years, during which public declarations, so during which means, you know, this is happening during that time. So 4 years of public, and then declarations, let's see, when you declare something, why does my keyboard not want to pop up? Show keyboard, please. All right, so declaration, a statement. People are talking, right? Of public statements that have been constantly called forth, that are constantly given on every point and phrase about every part of, and he says the great contest. So here, the great contest, you want to think a contest, two sides against one another, the war, right? So he's talking about the Civil War. On every part of the Civil War, which still absorbs the attention, which people still talk about. Let me put this here. the attention and engrosses the energies. Ooh, what does engross mean? Grosses, absorbs, uses the energies, okay? So which people still talk about and put all their energy into. Little that is new could be presented. So little that is new could be presented. I'm thinking he means said here. So I can't say anything new. It's all been said, right? So let's see. Now, at the end of 4 years of public statements that are constantly given about every part of the Civil War, which people still talk about and put all their energies into, I can't say anything new. Okay, so what he's saying here is I could talk about the war, but anything that I say, people have said before. Everybody's talking about it constantly. They're putting all their energy into it. If anything that I say will have already been said before, so I'm not going to waste my time on that, okay? So he says in this next sentence, let me go ahead and underline this next sentence. Okay, so the progress of our arms. The progress of our arms. So arms, you know, we're thinking of a war, we're thinking military. This might mean army, okay? So I'm going to say the military's progress, which all else chiefly depends on, okay? Which we all which we all depend on, is as well known to the public as to myself. So the public knows about it, you all know about it, and I know about it. So is known to everyone. And it is, I trust, I believe it is satisfactory and encouraging to all. So I believe it is good news to everyone. With high hope for the future, no prediction in regard to it is ventured. So with high hope for the future, I have high hopes no prediction, but I will not make a prediction and it says in regard to it. So in regard to it, about it. So he's talking about the war. I will not make a prediction about the war. And here where he says is ventured, a venture is something that you do or try to do, right? So that's what he's talking about. I will not make a prediction about the war or about the outcome of it, about who's going to win. That's what he's talking about here. Okay, so let's go ahead and just look at what we wrote, and let's just see if it makes a little bit more sense now than it did before. Okay, so again, we're reading Lincoln's speech, the very first paragraph. Americans, this is the second time giving this speech, and now there is less reason for a long speech than my first one. The first time I gave this speech, a long statement of what the country should do seemed right. Now, at the end of 4 years of public statements that are constantly given about every part of the Civil War, which people still talk about and put all their energy into, I can't say anything new. The military's progress, which we all depend on, is known to everyone, and I believe it is good news to everyone. I have high hopes, but I will not make a prediction about the war. Okay, so he's basically saying, I'm here, I'm giving this speech for a second time. The whole country is still involved in this war. And I know you want to hear about it, but I'm not going to make any more statements about it because anything that I say, it's already been said, okay? And I'm not going to make a prediction about the war, okay? So that makes sense. I can understand that, and I know that you can understand that as well. Now, as you see, it took some time. It took some fighting with, and this is what I say in class. You're going to have to fight with it a little bit. It might not always come out perfect. I know that I can look at these sentences that I just wrote, and I can make them better. I can make them even easier to understand, but they're fine for now. I have an idea of what he's saying. So as you go forward into the remainder of the speech, I want you to fight with it, okay? Do the same thing that we did. Take it sentence by sentence, and when you have really long sentences, take it phrase by phrase, okay? Use your dictionary applications to help you with that. And again, I know it's not going to be perfect when you come to class on Monday, but you should have a better idea on Monday than you did on Friday of what Lincoln was saying in this speech, okay? Just little bits of progress is what is going to get us where we want to be, okay? I hope that this was helpful. If you have any questions, you can feel free to email me. If I see it in time, then I'll try to email back as soon as possible, or you can come into my tutorials on Monday morning, okay? Thank y'all. Have a great weekend.